Hello and welcome to today's episode of LeadWell with Jacqui, where we are joined by Eve Mizzi from Ducks in a Row Home Organisation. Welcome, Eve.
Hi, lovely to
Hi.
be here.
So a little bit about Eve. As the founder and leader of a team of professional organisers, Eve helps families and businesses transform their spaces and has guided over 200 families and organised more than 400 rooms, creating functional, clutter-free environments that make everyday life easier. Eve's approach is all about simple, effective systems that anyone can follow, ensuring homes stay organised long after the decluttering is done. Based in Melbourne, she and her team are dedicated to helping people take control of their spaces and enjoy a more organised life. Today, Eve joins us to share her journey and the lessons in leadership she has learned along the way. So lovely to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Wow, thank you.
It's a pleasure. So Eve, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I started Ducks in a Row at the start of 2021. And I'd started a few businesses before that didn't go as well. A lot of lessons learned that I'm sure we'll get into a little bit here today. But the main part of Ducks in a Row, we love working with families and helping them declutter and just creating systems that last. It's one of our top priorities.
And so, I mean, we all went through the Marie Kondo phase and like the home edit we were all kind of obsessed with, and we were all like folding our clothes vertically and doing all the things. So what inspired you to do Ducks in a Row in particular? Why home organisation?
Yeah, it was actually the Home Edit Netflix show that inspired me to start it. Initially, it started out as me at home doing my own organisation. I loved the show. I loved watching the women and their dynamic. If you haven't seen it, they're very sort of high energy, high vibe, and I really resonated with that. And so I started doing it for myself, and I felt that, I think I could like do this for other people, do this. And I explored the idea and Ducks was born, and here we are 4 years later.
Yeah, I love that, because I think when we do something first for ourselves and we find like that spark or that passion or even just I'm actually pretty good at this. Like that's such a great beginning, right? Like it's such a good start point to go, maybe I'll just run with it and see what happens.
Yeah, it felt very much like a purpose-driven choice because it was something that I loved to do, that I enjoyed doing, and I had the experience of starting a few other businesses, so I had a bit of those lessons that I could implement, and I think all of that combined allowed Ducks in a Row to be the success that it is today.
And I mean, over 200 families and 400 rooms in a pretty short amount of time. And I know you employ 10 other organisers as well, right? So like, has that been like a steady growth over time, or was it pretty quick that it sort of took off?
I'd say it was a steady growth, and our organisers, so I say up to 10 because it does fluctuate. We do have, it does seem to be a seasonal business, I've learned over 4 years. So we're in our quiet time right now, the start of the year. The first half of the year, we run a smaller team. And then from about second half of the year, but definitely from sort of September till the end of the year, it's chaos. Everyone seems to want their house done the second half of the year. Definitely we get that sort of Christmas rush. People are having their families over and they think everyone's going to be seeing my home and they want everything to look nice and be manageable, which makes sense, right? And so that is a very, very busy time. So we ramp up then, and when we kind of have a nice little chill at the start. Yeah.
I imagine that phasing would be really interesting in terms of, as the owner and founder and leader of the business, like how you sort of strategically manage that phasing, right? Because you obviously, and I think a lot of the time in any organization, we think we always need to be busy all the time. So how do you navigate those fluctuations?
The first few years were so stressful because I didn't realize it was a seasonal business, and it took me those couple of years of going through it to understand that that is our normal. And so when you've had this big boom and then you hit the new year running and you've hired new people and then the work slows down, I was stressed trying to, find what do we need to do with our marketing and what do we need to do? How do we fix this? Thinking it was a problem, or what are we doing wrong, or, why is there this dip? And after a couple of years, we realized that, this is just what happens in this industry, or I'm speaking for all organizers. It happens to us. Yeah. It happens to everyone else. But I'm assuming it does. And so then now when it happens, it's not as stressful for me because I know it's not that we're doing something wrong or that we're losing clients or anything like that. It's simply just the way that people engage with us.
It's interesting. So I have a recent episode of the podcast that went out, which was about strategy. And we did that podcast episode because so many people are so anxious and nervous when it comes to strategy or being strategic or strategic thinking or any of those sorts of things. And they'll come to me as a coach and go, I'm not strategic enough, I need help. But I think what you've just articulated, that is strategic thinking, right? That's like, as long as we're, incrementally growing year on year, we can phase our sort of cash flow and work and marketing. We can use the quieter times. And I think that's where, approaching business from that purpose drive can be really beneficial, because it's like, okay, we're still serving people. We're still meeting our goals. And actually, like you said before, this is a lovely quiet time where you can kind of get on top of things and be really prepared to execute when it's busy later.
Yes.
And so do you do that kind of annual planning? What does that planning?
Yes and no. Yeah. I'd love to say that that I'm really good with utilizing the quiet time to do all of that kind of stuff. But I find inspiration seems to strike me at different stages and I just roll with it. So sometimes I do end up with quite a bit on my plate in the busier times because I really want to also do this other thing.
Yeah.
What about? But in saying that, I think something that I do quite well in the quieter times is taking time out.
Yeah.
Myself, which sometimes I can have a bit of guilt about, especially when you've been go for a few months at the end of the year. And then we get into Jan, Feb, and there's days where, all my stuff's done. And I think I'm going to go down to the beach, or I'm going to, go catch up with a friend. And allowing myself that, even if sometimes in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I should be doing something for the business. But kind of reminding myself, no, everything's getting done and it doesn't have to be push all the time. And it's okay to go out to with a friend on a Wednesday afternoon,
Yeah. And I think that's an important, for anyone who's in business, like, who says we have to be sitting at our desks from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, and that is what productivity looks like? Like, why? As long as the work gets done, then actually it's okay for your needs to be met as well. I think a lot of us, business owners and leaders will just go, well, no, like you said, that my red flag word is should.
Yes.
Like, I should be doing something. I should be more productive. I should be working. But actually, says who?
Yes. I've finished all my work at 2:00. Oh, well, then what thing can I create to do?
Yes.
And you know what's interesting that I just realized in this moment is it's something that people do with their home organizing as well, in terms of when we're helping someone declutter, if we create, say, a shelf of empty space through the process of decluttering, usually their first question is, so what do I put here now?
Yes.
And we have to remind them that sometimes it's okay for it to be an empty shelf. There doesn't have to be something on it. But we want to fill those spaces. And yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? There's got to be some sort of psychology around, like, we always want to be filling space, like literally or figuratively. But I also think there are a lot of similarities between leadership and running a business and decluttering. And it really does start with what you've just said, in terms of we really, we will fill with stuff, any, little nook or cranny that is available to be filled.
Yep.
But I want to just sort of take you back to the beginning a little bit. You said you had a few other businesses before and you've been on a bit of a journey. So this is my sort of, what I'm hearing is you tried a few different things. Maybe they weren't as successful as you like. You started doing something that was just for you and went, this is my jam. Like, this is what I should be doing. So can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, definitely. So I had a lot of random jobs before I even started thinking that I wanted to go more into the entrepreneurial space. I'd worked at an ice cream place. I've worked as an Uber driver. I've done a lot of random jobs. And then my first entrepreneurial idea that I had was to run an awards night. And so just prior to that, the job that I had was in a corporate office, and I was there for about 5 years, and I'd worked my way from customer service rep, entry level on the phones, into the project management space. And at that time, there were a lot of opportunities available to me in that company. But I'd had, similar to how Ducks in a Row started, this kind of passion, feeling, desire to do something for women. And so I had this idea that I wanted to run an awards night, which is called She Is Kind, where women could nominate each other for a kindness. And so that's the first one that I did. And that was actually quite successful. I just didn't have any idea of what was next. After that, there was no plan. And I even had some people come up to me at the end of that night and say, oh, we'd love to partner with you. What's next? How do we work together? And I had no idea what I was doing. And I was like, this is it. This is this is all about. And I'd quit my job to start this thing, and I did it. And then there was no plan after that. And so then that got my, I guess, juices flowing in terms of that drive to want to have my own business, what that was. And so I tested out a few other things. I started an events marketing business. I thought I wanted to be a life coach for a little bit, and those things didn't go so well. I definitely think my focus was more on wanting to make money than something that was more purposeful, that aligned with me. And I do believe that that's part of why those didn't work out. And then, as we've chatted about, I kind of just had this experience watching Netflix, and then here we are.
It's cool because what I'm hearing is the common thread in those sort of forays into other industries is actually, and She Is Kind is actually, how can I help others or how can I improve the lives of others, right? Like, starting that event, even if, you know, the life coaching, it does really feel like the purpose was there. But as you said, and I think this happens a lot, where we go, okay, but how do I monetize? Like, how do I earn money? Because, you know, that is an important, like, we do have to pay rent and buy food and stuff.
Yeah.
But it just feels, I don't know, like, even when you were saying that, my interpretation is those things didn't happen because they weren't supposed to.
Yes.
You know, and then you found, and it's interesting that you said, like, you'd moved into the project management space. And like, would you say that all of those different experiences have actually kind of culminated in Ducks in a Row, because
Absolutely.
you're using organization, obviously, project management, supporting women by employing so many, you know, like,
Yes.
it just seems to tick all the boxes.
Yeah, I definitely felt that, because there had been times, but I didn't sort of start each business back to back. I would start one, and, you know, when it wasn't going so well, I had to sort of make the decision of what I'm going to do next. And in between each of those, I went back into part-time or full-time work doing lots of different things.
And it's interesting. What I really like about your journey is that you come across as quite unapologetic of, yes, I had to try all of these things before I found my thing. Like, I remember really early in my career, I counted and I'd had something like 17 or 18 different jobs, and some of them were for just one day because I was trying to find my thing. And what I find is that a lot of women in particular are so worried about what others will think of them or other people's impression of them, that they go, oh, I can't, like, I've done this, it's not right, but I can't just jump to something else now, because what will that look like? And people will think I'm indecisive, or, you know, people will think I'm sort of, I don't know what the expression is, like flash in the pan, you know, and then I'm not serious. Like,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely see that. I've seen that with friends and people I've met at sort of business events and things like that. I definitely think one of my strengths is my confidence that I have in what I can do. I've always had a very strong belief in the things that I've gone out to do, even if they haven't worked out the way that I wanted them to. But in the moment, I have the confidence that I truly believe that I can do whatever it is. And so I think that gives you, I think, a lot of courage, and it allows you to take risks other people might not. And I know that not everyone sort of has that built-in confidence. I do think it's something that people can work on. But I do think that is something that's really helped me be able to just go and do things where people, I sort of think, you're leaving your stable job to do what? And, you know, whereas for me, it was an easy choice. But I think that's easy to say when you do have that confidence in whatever it is that you're wanting to do.
Yeah. And where do you think that confidence and that self-belief comes from?
Definitely my parents. My dad is definitely a very confident person, and I'm very much like him in a lot of ways. My mum's a little bit more shy. And so I think I definitely get that from him. I think it might just be hereditary confidence.
I think it's hereditary in that a lot of the time it's handed down from parent to child through behaviors and encouragement and reinforcement. Like, if you'd left a job and started a business and then started another business, and your dad was like, Eve, what are you doing? Stop doing that. You can't succeed. Then, you know, whereas if he was really encouraging, then that's going to cultivate and develop that self-belief.
Yes. And I mean, don't get me wrong, they've both thought that I have been nuts for some of my decisions. It definitely wasn't full-blown support as an adult, I think, for some of these decisions that I've made, but they've seen over time now, I guess, how I operate, and that it seems to pay off in the end.
Yeah.
And so now when I'm like, I'm going to go and do this, there seems to be a little bit more like, okay, like, all right, whereas before it might be more of a discussion around, are you sure? And in the end, there's always a support there, but there
Yeah.
can be a lot more questioning around, are you sure this is the right idea? Have you thought it through? What about this? What about that? And I sort of am like, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that people believe about confidence is that you either have it or you don't. And actually confidence is something that can be developed, but confidence is born from action. And a lot of people will wait until they feel confident before they act. But actually what you're a great example of is that you act, and that will give you confidence and others confidence in you.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
So in terms of your leadership, because that also, similar to what we've been saying about confidence, it sounds like your leadership has also kind of evolved over time. Have there been any particular moments or challenges or things that have come up that have shaped how you are as a leader?
I think it took me a little while to understand what really bad leadership looked like, because early on, I would say I didn't have a lot of really good, but I also didn't have a lot of really bad. It was kind of okay. So I didn't know the difference because I hadn't really experienced the each end. But in the corporate job that I was talking about earlier, that was the first time that I had a really, really good leader. And that was a woman named Harleen, and I was her 2IC or second in charge of our claims team that we were looking after. And it was the first time that I had some kind of leadership role. And she just had the ability to find common ground with everyone in the team and connect with them in a way that even when different people in the team didn't necessarily agree with her, she had a lot of respect. And I really noticed that, and I admired that in her. And it's something that I've tried to do myself.
Would you say that Harleen was one of your biggest sort of influences in terms of leadership?
Yes, definitely. I would say her, and one other person. So right before I started Ducks in a Row, I was working for a medical medium. His name is Michael. And I would say my leadership style now is heavily influenced by his and the time that I spent with him. And he was incredible in that he always wanted each person to do tasks that they loved and enjoyed doing, and he understood that may change over time. He was a very flexible leader, flexible in terms of work tasks, hours of work, approach to the work. The main goal was about getting things done, but not how it was done. He was constantly innovating. He was very encouraging for everyone to share their ideas. And to give an example of how sort of, I guess, flexible he was, we would have a meeting with people from different areas of the business, but you would have a videographer throwing out ideas for marketing and an administrator throwing out ideas for accounting, or, because nobody was boxed in to their role, and everyone respected each other and their ideas, and everyone was allowed to be heard. And it was just a really beautiful space. I haven't experienced any other workplace that was like that. And I think everybody flourished and everybody grew and learned so much from each other because of the way that he led. And so a lot of how I lead is to sort of emulate that.
I love that. And it does really like build a picture of the type of leader that you are between those two examples, someone who finds a common ground, builds connection, respect, is kind of open to all ideas. So obviously running any business and any style of leadership comes with challenges. Have you experienced any, or what has been your greatest challenge, and how did you move through it?
I think figuring out what my unique gifts are and my style of doing things, because I before starting Dark Sonora, when I was working starting the events marketing business, I knew that I didn't have any sales training. And I have come from a customer service background, and so I'm heavily influenced by that. And I thought that to be a successful business owner, I needed to have sales training and learn how to be a salesperson. And I ended up getting some mentors in that space. A couple of guys that come from sales are very, very good at it. And what happened was, though, is their style of selling didn't align with me. And so what would happen was, when I tried to implement it and I was having consultations with people, no one was signing up. I even had times where people would sign up, but then they'd renege. And it took me a while to figure out what was going on. But I realized that I didn't actually believe what I was saying. And I felt like I was tricking people. That's how that style of selling felt for me. And I'm not saying that style of selling is wrong, or that it doesn't work, because I saw people excel through the program that I was in. But most of the people that excelled were people that came from a sales background as well.
Yeah.
And it's something that they feel comfortable with, and they have been able to provide a lot of value to people through signing them up in that way. So I don't want people to think that I'm sort of saying that, sales tactics are not good or anything like that. They're just not for me.
Yeah.
And so I've learned that my style of selling is just to have a conversation, to outline what we do and how it works, to listen, to understand what the person wants, to give a quote, and then, you see what happens. And that works for me. It's very simple. And I think that when it comes to leading a team, or if you are wanting to start a business and there are so many things that you need to learn and understand, is that there's a lot of gurus out there, and there's a lot of people that you can follow with their 3 steps to whatever. And I think it's good to explore all of those things and listen to the podcasts and go to the events and do all of those things, but to try to figure out your own style and don't take things as gospel, because that's where I think you can get trapped, and you might be trying something and it's not working and you're thinking that you're the issue, but it actually might just be that style of doing whatever it is just doesn't match you. And so, that's what the biggest thing that I took out of that, because you can think that you're the problem when it's actually just that particular style isn't for you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people can smell bullshit a mile away, right? And I think, and that's something that comes up for a lot of leaders is, okay, especially women in leadership, like, okay, I'm going to have this conversation with someone, so I should do it the way that my male leader does it with me. And so then they're kind of almost, it's like a pantomime. You're kind of putting on a show when you're trying to emulate or be how someone else is. But if it's not authentic, it will it will show. If it's not showing physically and you're an excellent actor, then it like their customers' spidey senses, like they'll get a sense of actually that person didn't seem authentic.
Yeah.
Right. And the same with team member. Okay, well, my leader, I don't have a full trust in them because they just don't seem very authentic. Or when they're having particular conversations with me, sometimes like their voice changes a little bit.
Yeah.
Or they'll start using turns of phrase or structuring their conversation in a completely different way to what I'm used to.
Yeah.
And then the leader's like, why isn't this successful?
Yes.
I really think that message is a really important one, which is, and it's kind of aligned with that leader, Michael, that you were talking about as well. Like, figure out what the end goal is that you want to achieve and then find a way for you to achieve that end goal in a way that's aligned.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then not only will you be more successful, but you also will be like in flow. It will be comfortable. A lot of people get really, really anxious about having like a sales call, for example. And I think the other side, especially as a business owner, and it's kind of like interviewing people in more the corporate space as well, you're not just selling because you want every single client to come on board. You're also kind of seeing if you'd be a good fit. Like, you're not going to be the right organizer for every single person you speak to. And I'm not going to be the right coach for every single person I speak to. And that confidence that you carry and that authenticity is what puts you in a good position to be okay with that.
Yeah. I think if you are putting on a show, like you mentioned earlier, and you're not being authentically you during the sales call, it makes it really hard then whatever service you're providing to you've got to carry that through now.
Yeah, true.
That person, or it becomes that where there's this discrepancy and maybe you do get the job, but then you show up authentically on the day to provide the service or whatever, you've had this conversation with the team member. Now you're going back to the team environment and you're sitting down at the desk and now you're acting like a completely different person. And there's a distrust that can be created, and that team member or that client can feel like there's just something not right and they can't put their finger on what it is. And that will potentially mean, that person not being a return client or your staff member not feeling comfortable talking to you about something.
Yeah.
And they are very dangerous things.
Absolutely.
You can be yourself as much as possible. The good and the harder times, when you're not feeling so good, letting people know that, I'm not feeling so good today. I think those things all make the difference. It makes you human to the people around you, which is really important.
Yeah. And that consistency and predictability breeds trust, right? Because it's like, I know that every time I approach Eve, I know what I'm going to get. So I know that your confidence is a really important asset to you. Have you ever felt imposter syndrome? Is that like maybe in that sales kind of area as close as you've got, or how does that show up, if at all?
I don't feel like I've experienced imposter syndrome.
You're lucky, Eve.
But I do experience self-doubt.
Yeah, okay.
I see them as a little bit different. Like I think that confidence that I have seems to make me feel that I belong in the spaces that I've been in. And I even probably the authenticity in myself that I've grown into that hasn't always been there. The confidence has always been there, but the authenticity has definitely been the last maybe 10 years kind of thing. But that makes it easier to walk into any space and just be like you're comfortable being yourself. So it doesn't, I'm not thinking about whether someone's more qualified than me or anything like that. I'm there to be me, and that is enough. But I definitely experience self-doubt about decisions that I'm making or want to make or have made. Have I made the right choice? And I like to try to use my heart over my head with those kind of decisions, or with most decisions, because I think intuitively we do know what the next right step is, and that's not always the logical business plan step.
Yeah.
Of what, these mentors or gurus or people say is the path or the way to be successful.
The should.
Yeah. Like there's not one way of doing things.
Yeah.
So I don't think every path has to look like someone else's, but even with all that, I still question decisions, and I get doubt until I've worked through and really thought about what is right for me. Because it can be easy to start listening to other voices, and I think that's when I get the most confused. And it's hard because I think it's good to, when you're making a big decision, I think it's good to talk to others to understand what you need to do. I need to talk to my accountant. I need to talk to my lawyer. I need to talk to, maybe somebody else in business and get different perspectives and understand what that would look like and what are the risks. And, you can't just sort of be like, well, I've just decided, and then, what that means. But there needs to be a bit of both. And I think discernment is a big part of that too, is listening to other people, but remembering to always come back to yourself, because what you feel is the right path is more important than what other people are telling you should do.
I think that's really good advice for people. Like when you do, because self-doubt is normal, right? I think it would be concerning if someone didn't have any self-doubt or any imposter syndrome or anything in that, because that means that you're not applying that level of discernment around, is this the right decision? But in terms of a big decision, I think that's also how we navigate through, right? The self-doubt is what comes up to say, oh, have you thought about this? Oh, but what about that? Make sure you consider this, so that we're not kind of being erratic and jumping before we've determined that it's the right move.
Yeah.
And also decisions don't have to be made on the spot, right? Like one of my favorite sayings is change only takes place when the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of making the change. And I just think that's so, like, sometimes you can have that little seed of doubt planted, like maybe I am ready to make a move.
Yeah.
But it's actually not until the move becomes the more favorable option, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how do you approach building and leading a strong team? And I would add to this that layer of complexity that you really do kind of have a consistently changing team, because you have casuals kind of coming in and out. Like how do you forge that bond, I guess?
Yeah. There's 3 things that I do consistently that work really well for me, regardless of who's in the team and people coming in and out. Especially with that, because I've got some team members that are more long-term. When you are consistent in your leadership, your team emulate that. And therefore, if a new person comes in, everyone in sort of the core team are acting in a particular way that is all consistent, and then that spreads to the casuals. And I'll also say that I've found that these 3 things have created really strong loyalty and dedication to the role, and safety and honesty within the team. And I think that the loyalty and dedication side surprised me. I don't know why, but I wasn't expecting I feel like my team are like die hard for like ducks.
I love
You know, I love it.
Yeah.
But I wasn't expecting, I didn't anticipate that as a result of how I lead. And so it was a very pleasant surprise. And I think businesses, companies, entrepreneurs, I hope that that's the kind of workforce that they want. And I feel that the three things that I do, I feel like it's directly aligned with getting that result. And so the first one is to allow for mistakes, which I feel it's probably the most important one. I was like, I don't know if I want to like rank them in importance, but I do think this is so important. And I also want to caveat that with, it's not just allowing for mistakes in your team. More importantly, it's allowing and sharing your own mistakes. Because I think so many leaders think that if they share something that they have done incorrectly or a learning that they've had with the team, that it makes them look like a bad leader. But in fact, it's the opposite. And if you don't share, your team feel like you are this perfect person that gets nothing wrong, and it makes them feel like they can't get anything wrong. And so I think it's a responsibility of a leader to set the tone of how you want your team to act. And therefore, sharing anything that you have done is going to benefit everyone. So if I'm in session and I make a mistake, I've ordered the wrong product, for example, I'm not going to hide that from the person or people that I'm working with that are in my team, and also with the client, actually. I'm going to share that with the team first, and we will discuss it together and figure out how we're going to resolve it. And I found that everything gets resolved also. Everything gets resolved, and we're human. Everyone, you're going to make mistakes. Your team are going to make mistakes. The mistakes are not an issue unless it's the same thing being repeated again and again and again. But if you can create that safe space for your team to share their mistakes, you are going to know what's going on in your team or your business because they're going to tell you.
Yeah.
So I've had team members call me on the drive home from a session, explaining a situation that's happened where they've forgotten something or they've done something incorrectly. And sometimes they're calling just to tell me, even though they resolved it themselves. And they're also telling me what they did to resolve it. And we can laugh about it and move on. Other times they're telling me because they need help with what the solution is, or they're not sure whether maybe I'm going to be contacted by the client. And it prepares me.
Yeah.
You know, if something's being escalated to you as the leader, team leader, manager, if your team member hasn't communicated because they were afraid to tell you, you are potentially going to be blindsided by this situation, and you're going to look like you have no idea what you're doing. Whereas if you are already aware of it, maybe the client will contact, maybe the client's fine, customer, whoever they are, but at least you can be prepared for that conversation as well if need be.
Yeah. And it helps you to figure out where your team members could benefit from additional support too, right? Like if someone's consistently making the same error with ordering product, for example, it's like, okay, how can I hone in on that particular skill so that we can build their ability and reduce this from happening again? But if they don't tell you, then that's where the problems arise.
Yes. And you can end up getting frustrated with them when you're seeing them making that. Maybe you're noticing mistakes that are happening and you're getting frustrated. But I think it's the responsibility of the leader to ensure that people have what they need and the knowledge and experience and the training that they need to be able to do their job. And so if someone is not performing, it's either a hiring issue that you hired the wrong person, or it's a training issue and you haven't provided the right training and support for that person. Either way, it comes back onto the leadership and not onto.
Yes, I agree.
Unless someone's blatantly, doing something, lying and doing that kind of thing. But if it's not that, which I feel most of the time it's not, it falls onto the leadership, in my opinion. It's their responsibility that something's kind of gone wrong there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So allowing for the mistakes is my first one. And an example of how we do this. So as I mentioned, I'll say things as they're happening if I'm in session or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have a weekly team meeting, and there are questions we ask in that meeting that everyone answers. And one of them is, were there any lessons learned from the last week?
Mm-hmm.
And so this gives everyone, including myself, admin staff, the organizers that are in session, everyone in the different teams, can share something that they learned, which usually means that something went wrong for them to learn the lesson. And so then that also gives us all an opportunity to learn from each other and what's going on, because not everyone's working with everyone at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you are in an office environment, people have got their own workloads and their own people and things that are happening. So having them thinking about this, ready to come to the team meeting to say, oh, what happened in the last week, so that we can all learn from each other. And I found that helps to create that environment and that culture around mistakes being okay.
And I imagine that it creates a real connection piece in terms of supporting one another as well. Like you were saying before with your mentor, if someone brings a problem to the whole group, someone else might go, oh, that challenge has happened to me. Here's how I worked through it. Or have you thought about doing it this way? And it creates that real kind of growth mindset. And it's interesting because that kind of behavior builds connection, but it's also this real we're in it together mentality. And so when you said before, it's created a really strong loyalty, and that you were kind of surprised by that. I'm not surprised at all, because that's when people go I am an active participant in the success of not just my role, but of this business. I am committed to making sure that this business works. It's a really cool, inclusive style.
Yeah, I agree. And then the second one is to give people their flowers, which is about praising your team. And so it's almost like the flip side. When things go wrong, we need to make sure that we're talking about that. But when things go really well, we need to talk about that too. And I've had team members share amazing ideas with me, not just about how we organize. I could have someone who's an organizer saying, oh, we could we reach out to the newspaper, and could we do this? And could we, a marketing idea or whatever it is. And what I have found has worked really well is to not only praise the person as they're saying it to you, which might be a one-on-one thing that's happening, but I bring that up in something like the team meeting environment, and I make sure to name that person. Definite no for me is to ever take someone else's idea as my own. I will always name that person. And what that does is it creates an environment where people not only feel safe to share their ideas, but they want to. Because I think when you're in a team, a lot of people like to be praised. Some people are a bit more shy and they're like, oh, I don't want you to say that, but for the most part, it feels good. It feels good to be praised. And so it encourages more ideas to come through. And I remember I'd worked at this building company, and I had an idea that I'd shared. And when it came to us coming into the meeting, the guy that I pitched it to took it as his own. And it really rubbed me the wrong way, personally to him, but also it really made me not want to share my ideas. It was more of a competitive environment, and I feel like that really squanders creativity and idea sharing, because everyone wants it for themselves. And that I haven't seen that work. And so for us, I've then seen that. So I'm making sure that me as the leader, that I'm praising someone one-on-one, I'm sharing their ideas and I'm naming them, but I'm also seeing then my team members doing that within each other.
Amazing. Yeah.
And they do what I do.
Yeah.
You know, Isabella is saying to Virginia, oh, Fiona had this really good idea, blah, 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 whatever it is, you know, and that makes me feel so good to see that flowing through to everybody else.
Yeah.
And so this is another one question that we have in our team meeting, which is, what is something good that someone did in the last week? So every week, every single person names one other person and says something good that they did. It could be in any part of work. Sometimes it's very random things. You know, they bought me lunch or something, you know, that's not even work related.
Yeah.
But it's just nice to share the love.
Yeah, I really like the turn of phrase, give people their flowers. I've never heard that before, but it just feels really emotive. Like when you receive, wow, you know, like it's like, oh, wow, that's really acknowledging.
Yeah.
You know, I feel seen, I feel acknowledged, I feel important, and I feel like a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
I love it. It's great.
Thank you. Okay, so the third one is giving feedback. And this one becomes really, really easy when you're doing the first two things. So you're allowing for mistakes and you're giving people their flowers. Because what this does is it creates that safe environment. And so I have found that especially small things in terms of giving feedback, it's a non-event. It's not, it's stressful for me. It's not stressful for the person receiving the feedback. And especially on the small things. And I'm highlighting that because I know some other conversations are a little bit more challenging. And if you're having to have a more serious conversation with someone, even when you've got the good relationship, you know, it can be harder to participate in that. But even then, it's easier when you've got this relationship and you've got this culture in the team. But I will, in session, if I've noticed somebody's doing something in the way that isn't quite the way that we'd like to do things, it's a comment of, oh, hey, see how you're doing this like this. Can we do it like this instead? And then I follow that with because, and I share why, so that they understand why it needs to be done in that particular way. But it's really in passing. And I find it's received quite well. And I know you've got a really good podcast episode on here about giving feedback, which I highly recommend people listen to, because in this, I don't want to focus too much on the how to give the feedback, but more just talk about why it's important, because I think you cover a lot of that in that other episode. But I think that I've noticed through being an employee and also a leader, and working with other leaders in like call center environments and things, that there seems to sometimes be a fear from the leader's perspective about giving feedback. You don't want to hurt someone's feelings. You're worried about how they're going to take it, or something like that. But I think it's more important to realize that if you don't share the feedback, you're actually doing that person a massive disservice, because that person wants to be good at their job and they're looking to you to steer them. So rather than thinking about not wanting to maybe upset them by telling them that they're doing something incorrectly, to think more about the fact that you want to allow them to be even better at their job, and they want that feedback because they want to be better.
Yeah. One of the sort of definitions of leadership that I really come back to often is that the role of a leader is to make sure that each individual has everything they need in order to succeed in their role and to clear any obstacles that might arise. And that is what I am hearing from you in terms of giving feedback. If you're not giving feedback, you're not actually allowing your people to succeed in their role, and you're allowing for those obstacles to remain. So it is, like Brene Brown says, clear is kind. Like, the kindest way that you can lead someone is to respectfully give them those course corrections. Because you're all in your example as well, if you're in session and someone is doing something in a different, maybe less efficient, less effective way, why? And it's the same in any workplace. Why would you let them continue being less efficient and less effective, and actually their work is more difficult, and they get less of it done?
Yes.
Really what stops leaders from giving feedback, and this might be a bit harsh, is it's a real self-serving drive of, well, I don't like feeling uncomfortable. They might not react well. They might get uncomfortable. Or I hear this a lot, what if it makes them worse? Yeah. And they get kind of spiteful about it.
Yeah.
When people are giving feedback on behavior, when you demonstrate X kind of behavior, if they're like coming in late or if they're speaking in a way that's not as respectful, a lot of the time it's like, oh, well, then they might do more of that.
Down on that.
Which is like, well, then there might not be that conversation.
But the business is going to be doing that, hey?
Right. But I love this really simple kind of collection of things that make you an effective leader, which is allow for mistakes and share them. So it's not even just allowing, is it? It's like allow for mistakes, make sure they are shared, give people their flowers, make sure that that is also done in a way that is kind of public or visible, and then give people feedback. And if you are allowing for mistakes and giving people their flowers, then when you're giving feedback, it's gentle, iterative notes rather than let me pull you aside and give you a complete behavioral overhaul.
Yes.
Right? Because the first two forge respect and connection. And so you're less likely to have a conversation around like really significant detrimental behaviors.
Yes.
If you have those first in place.
Yeah, because you don't get to that. You don't get to that point. And I definitely agree with you that it's usually the leader that's in their own way if they're not providing the feedback. And I definitely have struggled with that. There's been times where I'll give an example. So the two women that have been with me for the longest, when they first started, I was giving a lot of feedback because it was very much a training environment as well. We're learning on the job, as well as there's a little bit of online stuff that we do, but for home organizing, a lot of the learning is on the job. And once they became more experienced, I went through a phase of trying to figure out the balance between letting them figure out their own style and letting them make their own mistakes, but also making sure that everything was still aligned with our brand and not wanting to squander that them by telling them, oh, can you do it this way? But I realized that I needed to get over myself and give them that feedback, because just because they are more experienced and becoming more leads themselves within the business, they still want to learn and grow. They still want to be better, and they want to do things, the way that I want them done. They don't want to be doing it, in a way that I don't, necessarily want to, but they don't know that unless I tell them.
Yeah.
So they're just going to keep doing what they're doing unless I tell them. And it can be daunting, but I think you need to, if you're going to be an effective leader, you do need to get yourself out of the way. And it's about what is the best thing for the business. Is this something that done their way is just as effective and doesn't need to be something that's spoken about? Or is this something that's really important to be done in a particular way and you have a reason for that and you can explain that to them?
Yeah, absolutely. I like to think of this like, is it wrong or is it different?
Yes.
Like, and it comes back to that kind of lighthouse style of leadership where if you're really clear with the expectation and the output and they find their own way to do it, if it's wrong in that it's not aligned with, as you said, like with how your business operates, or if it's really inefficient, or if it's, whatever, then absolutely, that's where that should trigger a feedback conversation. But if it's just different to how you do it, and there aren't a lot of sort of detrimental impacts, but it gets to the same end goal, let them have it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's even an opportunity to say like, oh, I've noticed that you do that differently to how I do it. And it's great. Like it works really nicely. Maybe I'll adopt some components of it. Like that is going to make someone go,
yeah,
look at me.
Yes.
Here I go.
Yeah.
Is there any advice that you would give to women in particular in leadership or who might be looking at starting their own business?
Just to do it your way.
Yeah.
That there isn't one way of doing things, and my way isn't the best way. Just take what feels right for you out of certain things. I think everybody's got different personality and different skill sets, and I think it's that honing in on your personal gifts, the structure that makes up you is what is going to make you really good at leadership or starting a business or whatever it is that you want to do. And if you can figure out what those things are for you, you might have a new way of doing something that nobody's talking about. But if you don't figure out what your gifts are and figure out where your genius is, you're not going to be able to figure out what that structure is or what that process is to then be able to help others who might be a similar personality to you that would work really well for, and to be able to share that with them.
Yeah, I love that. So trying different styles and getting people's guidance and wisdom, but being discerning with which pieces of guidance you actually take on and embody. And it feels like it's almost like try it on for size and see how it feels. And if it feels really aligned and authentic, then over time, that's how you hone your natural style.
Yeah. And even asking other people that you trust what your strengths and weaknesses are, for them to honestly tell you what they are. And I think getting some people from a personal level and also some people from a professional level, because you'll be able to weave, you are both people. You are the one person. So there's going to be things about you that people see as a strength in your personal life that you're not adopting into your professional life that maybe you should. And that was really enlightening for me when I did that, to understand a bit more about myself, because I think it's easier to discern when you know yourself. If you don't know yourself yet, but you're learning all these things and you're trying things on, it can be easy to get lost in there and not know what's what.
Yeah.
So I think if you focus on finding a way, whether it's a strengths and weaknesses question, or I'm sure if you Google, there'd be many ways that you can find that out for yourself, to find out more about you first. If you don't already know, maybe you already know, and then go into it from that place. I think it make it a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. The first step to any leadership program that I work on is self-awareness.
Yes.
Because you need to know what your strengths and weaknesses are, what challenges that you need to overcome, where you need to focus more energy. So I think that's a really good advice. Okay. So in the caption below in the show notes, we'll include how people can connect with you and how they can reach out if they need some home organization or if they just want to follow you along on your journey. But thank you so much for your generosity of sharing all of the lessons that you've learned in a relatively short amount of time, I might say. Like 4 years is not a long time, but you've obviously come up with a lot of amazing strategies and techniques that have forged such a strong team. So thank you for sharing with us.
Well, thank you. I think I was lucky to have those people in my journey when I was an employee as well that has shaped that for me. That's made it a bit easier now.
Yeah, and now you get to pay it forward, and the people that work for you will be on a podcast in the future or having a conversation in the future going, actually, I had this amazing leader. Her name was Eve, and here are all the things that she did.
I hope
you're paying it forward. Well, thank you, Eve, so much for joining us. And for those listening, thank you. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you, and we'll see you next time.